Welcome to my very first The 100 Season 1 episode review video. Before I get into that though, pretty important. If you haven't watched the very first episode of The 100, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this detailed review any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And full disclosure, I've already watched The 100 one other time. It was either starting in late 2018 or at some point in 2019. Really liked the first 5 seasons of the show. Loved the first 5 seasons of the show. But then Season 6 and Season 7 were a huge letdown, in my opinion. But I thought, I kind of want to rewatch The 100 and might as well do reviews of it on the channel to maybe grab some different subscribers. So join me on the journey and let's discuss this mostly awesome and amazing show. With all that said, this will be The 100 Season 1, Episode 1. The title of this episode is called Pilot. And this will be my review reaction recap after just finishing watching the episode. We start with Clark drawing a picture on the floor of her room on the Ark. 2 Ark guards enter the room, one of whom orders Clark to face the wall. One of the guards opens up a metal box containing wristbands. Clark mistakes the wristbands for the device that will execute her and expresses panic due to the fact that she doesn't turn 18 for another month. When the guard orders Clark to remove her watch, she protests due to it being the last thing she owns of her father's. The guard grabs her wrists for it, and Clark fights back. Overcoming both guards, Clark escapes her cell. Outside of her cell, Clark sees guards escorting juvenile delinquents. Clark's mother, Abby Griffin, appears and hugs her frightened daughter. And then Abby reassures Clark that the delinquents aren't being executed and informs her that they are being sent to the ground instead. And then a guardsman shoots Clark with a tranquilizer. When Clark awakens, she finds herself on a dropship heading for Earth. Clark discovers that an old friend who betrayed her, Wells Jaha, is also on the dropship after he got himself arrested in order to protect Clark. When they hit Earth's atmosphere, a message from Chancellor Theonidas Jaha, that's Wells' father, appears and explains to the 100 that they are being sent down to Earth because they are expendable, but that if they are cooperative, their crimes will be forgiven. So there's a misconception that this show is called The 100. It's The 100, although at times in the episodes they will say 100. The show is officially called The 100, for those of you that didn't know that already. And citizens demand answers for the launched dropship. A woman explains that they can't confirm or deny anything at the time and walks away as the citizens yell at her. Clark learns that their drop site is a military base called Mount Weather. While watching the video, Finn gets out of his seat and performs aerial stunts near Clark and Wells. 2 other delinquents follow his lead and try to get out of their seats despite Clark's what Clark is saying. Finn points out that Clark has been in solitary for over a year, and that Clark, annoyed, points out that he wasted 3 months of oxygen on an illegal spacewalk. Moments later, the parachute deploys, sending the 2 delinquents and Finn flying. Then we have Callie, Marcus Kane, and Commander Shumway learn from Sinclair that the dropship has had a total system failure and that they're off course. Kane, who is Desmond on Lost, asks about communications, and Sinclair informs him that there's no way to contact the delinquents. The 100 are on their own. The dropship comes in too fast. Wells worries because the retro rockets didn't fire when they were supposed to. He then goes to apologize for getting Clark's father arrested and eventually executed, or floated in this case. That's what they call the executions. Clark is hostile towards Wells and declares her hatred for him. The retro rockets fire, interrupting them, and the dropship lands on Earth. Monty, scraped to the wall, observes that there is no machine hum and the crash must have cut off the Ark's communication to the 100. The delinquents begin to recover from their landing and unstrap themselves. Clark gets out of her seat and checks on one of the 2 delinquents who followed Finn out of their seats. Clark asks if the other is breathing. Finn exchanges a look with Clark, indicating that both delinquents are indeed dead. Then Clark descends from a ladder and stops Bellamy Blake from opening up the dropship door due to the fear that the air could be toxic. Bellamy ignores her, explaining that in that case they would have all been dead anyway. And then Bellamy goes to open the door when a young woman hesitantly calls out his name. A delinquent shouts out, revealing the young woman as Octavia, played by Marie Avradopoulos, who I absolutely love. And that's Bellamy's sister, Octavia Blake. So Octavia and the girl the Ark found hidden is the girl that the Ark actually found hidden in the floor illegally. This angers Octavia, causing her to try attacking the delinquent who made the comment. However, Bellamy stops her, and then Bellamy offers Octavia something else for people to remember her by: the chance to be the first human on the ground in over 100 years. This excites Octavia. Bellamy opens up the dropship door, and the delinquents experience their first breath of fresh air. Octavia steps out of the dropship and savors the feeling of being on Earth. Bellamy blocks the others from leaving the dropship. Octavia jumps onto the ground and smiles. Behind her, the delinquents and Clark take in the sights of Earth. Octavia throws her fists into the air and shouts in excitement. The rest of the delinquents smile, shout, and cheer as they race out of the dropship to explore their new world. Clark jumps onto the ground and her face lights up in excitement. Clark's excitement is short-lived when she realizes that they are not on Mount Weather and that a radiation-soaked forest sits between them and their next meal. And then back on the Ark, Marcus Kane informs everyone that the 100 have landed, but the communications are down. It's only thanks to Abby Griffin's wristbands that they know what is happening on Earth. Abby informs Kane that so far they have 2 dead kids. They show up as dark tiles. Abby and another doctor, Eric Jackson, theorize the 2 were killed on impact because they went black at the same time they lost communication. Kane decides that if that was radiation that killed them, there would be more fatalities showing up already. Kane is curious about what Abby thinks of all the red means. Abby explains that it was either injury sustained in the landing or the kids' excitement to be there. And Clark plots a route to Mount Weather. Clark decides they need to worry about getting to Mount Weather. She shows him the path they need to take. Wells asks her where she learned to do that. When Clark doesn't answer, Wells realizes that her father taught her. Jasper approaches and playfully flirts with Clark. Wells roughly grabs his arm and pushes him away. John Murphy, played by Richard Harmon, sees this and confronts Wells, stating Jasper is one of them. Wells tries to talk Murphy down, but is interrupted by Bellamy. Wells explains that they need to find Mount Weather. Octavia mocks Wells and Clark because they are considered privileged. Clark doesn't let this stop her, instead explaining that if they continue to wait, they will go hungry. Bellamy proclaims Clark and Wells should go, while the rest of them wait for them to return with food and supplies. Wells tries to make Bellamy understand that they'll need to go. John Murphy shoves Wells, trying to start a fight, while John Mbingi holds Clark back. Before the 2 can fight, however, Finn intervenes and tells Murphy to wait until it is a fair fight. Octavia approaches and suggestively hints for Finn to save her next. He flashes Octavia a smile before walking away. Clark goes to check on Wells while Bellamy approaches his sister and gives her a look. Octavia shrugs and says he's cute. Bellamy expresses concern that Finn is a criminal, but Octavia points out that they are all criminals. Bellamy explains that he came to protect her, but Octavia doesn't want to his help. Bellamy tells her that he can't stay because he did something that the council would kill him for, but refuses to tell Octavia what he did. Clark checks Wells' injured leg as Finn approaches them and asks when they leave. Clark tells him that they are leaving right away before turning to Wells to explain when they will be back. Finn recruits Monty and Jasper to the group, and Octavia invites herself along for the journey, even as Bellamy tries to stop her. When Clark spots a scuff mark on the side of Finn's wristband, she scolds him and tells him that the wristbands transmit vital signs to the Ark. If they take them off, the Ark will think they are dead, unknowingly giving Bellamy an idea. Clark sets out for Mount Weather with Finn, Jasper, Monty, and Octavia. On the Ark, Callie, played by Kelly Hu, Abby, and Kane find out that Chancellor Jaha has been shot. Walking through a lush forest, the group takes their time admiring Earth. Clark observes that there are no animals and concludes that there must have been enough radiation to wipe them out. They continue walking on, and Monty and Jasper reveal how they got busted for stealing from the Ark's garden and forgetting to replace what they took. Jasper asks Octavia what she was arrested for which she replies, for being born. Clark motions for everyone to join her. In front of them is a deer gazing in the field. Finn snaps a twig, and the deer turns to them, shocking the group with its two heads. And then on the Ark, Abby and her assistant, Eric Jackson, operate on the dying Theonis Jaha. During the operation, the Chancellor begins to awaken. Abby orders the nurse to increase the anesthesia. However, the nurse is hesitant, and Jackson notes that they have used too much blood and anesthesia and is worried about breaking the law. Abby increases the anesthesia regardless, knowing it is illegal. She could get floated. In the other part of the Ark, Commander Shumway notifies Marcus Kane that the Chancellor is still in surgery. He also informs Kane that they have identified the shooter as Bellamy Blake. Commander Shumway mentions to Marcus Kane that his motivation for getting to Earth was clear: his sister. Marcus Kane remembers that their mother had kept her hidden for almost 16 years, a near record. And then Commander Shumway urges Kane to resume position as Chancellor and start reducing the population. Kane is focused on finding out who helped Bellamy Blake get on the dropship. On Earth, Wells is confronted by John Murphy, who asks him if he found water. Wells tells him that he has not and invites Murphy to join him when he goes back out. Wells notices that Murphy engraved "First Son, First to Die" on the side of the dropship. Murphy explains that his father begged for mercy before Wells' father floated him. Instead of being intimidated by Murphy, Wells mentions that Murphy spelled "die" wrong and leaves. Bellamy approaches Murphy and John Mbengi and tells them that if they plan to kill someone, it's not a good idea to announce it. Bellamy convinces Murphy and Mbengi that they will not be forgiven for their crimes or live a better life once the Ark comes down. When John Murphy asks how they stop it, Bellamy tells them to take off their wristbands to make the Ark think that they're dead, so the rest of the Sky People won't follow the delinquents to Earth. Bellamy offers Murphy and Mbengi positions to help him run things around camp. Abby notices some of the wristbands are going dark. Kane believes it to be radiation, but Abby counters that, saying that is not how radiation works. And then in the woods, Clark tells the group that the reason the 100 were sent to Earth after 97 years is because the Ark is dying and only has 3 to 4 months of life support left, and that is the reason she was locked up in solitary and her father was floated for it. Octavia then takes off to the edge of the stream and strips off her pants as Jasper looks on. Octavia leaps into the water. Luckily, the water is shallow but none of the 100 can swim other than Clark. They all start taking off their clothes to join Octavia. Jasper spots something in the water and shouts at Octavia to get out of the river. Octavia is suddenly pulled underwater by a river snake. She comes up a bit farther downriver, screaming. Clark, Monty, and Finn toss a boulder onto the water to distract the river monster, but Octavia is unable to swim to the shore. Jasper jumps in and grabs her just as the creature comes back, and he is able to pull Octavia to shore in time. And then later that night, back at the delinquents' camp, Wells watches as Mbengi and Murphy remove Fox's wristband and toss it into the bonfire. Wells explains that the delinquents will not be able to survive on their own. Bellamy goes on to say that there are no laws on Earth and they can do whatever the hell we want. It suddenly starts raining to the delight of the delinquents, and Wells tells Bellamy they need to collect the water. Bellamy tells him whatever the hell you want. Up on the Ark in the Earth Monitoring Center, Abby observes that 10 more tiles have gone dark. Jackson realizes that delinquents found water. Commander Shumway enters with Kane and publicly arrests Abby for exceeding the maximum medical supplies allowed per patient. Abby takes it in stride, explaining that it was worth to break the law in order to prevent Kane from becoming Chancellor. Kane, as Chancellor, finds Abby guilty and then sentences her to death, scheduling her for execution for the following morning. Kane then has her locked in Clark's old prison cell, where she sees all of the drawings Clark made over her year in solitude and cries. Clark awakens while it is still dark out. Jasper, Monty, and Octavia are asleep behind her as she sits up and witnesses the trees and plants' life aglow with bioluminescence. Finn approaches her with a leaf filled with water for her to drink from. He then shows her some tracks in the dirt and says he thinks there might be monkeys around. And then on the Ark, a heartbroken Callie, played by Kelly who unfortunately doesn't come in the next episode. She was too expensive. And then approaches Kane in his quarters about Abby's sentence, but he does not budge. Wells is awoken from his sleep by Bellamy's hand over his mouth and a gun pointed in his face. Bellamy takes him away from the camp in order to explain that he needs the Ark to think that he is dead. He asks him to take off his wristband. Wells refuses, and Bellamy apologizes before Murphy and Bengay hold Wells down and forcibly remove his wristband. Up on the Ark in Clark's old room, Abby stares out into space as the guard opens her door and tells her it's time. She is led to an airlock where Commander Shumway and Marcus Kane wait. Callie hugs her, says goodbye, and Abby walks into the airlock with Shumway sealing it behind her. Abby tells Jackson to talk with Sinclair in engineering about figuring out how to reverse engineer the wristbands to communicate with the delinquents. Kane gives the nod to Shumway to float Abby, but is told to stop by Chancellor Jaha, who has awakened from his surgery. He pardons Abby, who walks out of the airlock, and orders Jaha back to bed before she leaves with Callie. And then Kane informs Jaha about the 100. Finn is holding on to a vine, about ready to swing across the river to the other side. Jasper tells him to let go of it. As Finn is about to take off, Jasper asks if he can go first so he can impress Octavia. Finn agrees, and Jasper goes soaring across the river, letting go as he screams and lands safely on the other side. They all begin cheering, and Clark prepares to go next. Jasper picks up a sign reading Mount Weather and holds it above his head, telling him they did it and reach Mount Weather. He is suddenly knocked off his feet and propelled back, pinned against a tree by a giant spear, that's in his chest. Clark, Finn, Monty, and Octavia all duck in fear as they realize they are not alone, and that's what ends this pilot episode of the 100. So pretty good stuff here. I was instantly into this show again. I'm going to score this episode an 8.4 out of 10. And my characters of the episode, I'm going to give it to Jasper and Clark's mom, Abby. Other people certainly have claim to it, but those are the two that I chose. So you've heard everything that I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of the 100 and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please make sure that you Hulk smash the like button, share this video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section about what your thoughts are when it comes to this episode of the 100. What would you rate it? Who would you choose as a character or characters of the episode? I know Clark is probably the character of many episodes, but come on, Clark is... I want to give it to the lesser known characters, which they're really good, they're known, but, Clark can't get it more than once or twice this season. And then last, but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You watch the video anyway. Subscribe to the channel. Help me get over 100,000 subscribers. Yes, I know I set my goals high. Join the team, share your damn support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDev TV.